Mr. Minnick from the YouTube channel, MrMinnick.com. Please subscribe. We are going to review how to pass parameters in Python. Looking at this example right now, when I click Run, it only displays a title of this application, Stock Manager. Let's scroll down to the main program section where all the action technically starts. This line number 39, that's an example of a call statement. The function display title is being called, and the function actually is typed out on line 18. When I click right here, it unfolds that code, and you see that the body of the function, highlighted in blue, is the code that executes and produces this output in the console output window to my right, where I'm waving my mouse right now. Oh, notice, app name is here on the left, but Stock Manager is on the right. Can anybody loudly explain why it doesn't match up? Okay, I will. App name in all capital letters, uppercase, is a constant. That's good style. To always put your constants somewhere near the top of your code and spell them in uppercase letters. And that means that if the company Vanguard, all rights reserved for Vanguard, sorry to use your name in my video, but if they take over this generic Stock Manager program, they would put the name of their company up there. And then they would click Run, or people that download the app or something would run, and they would see Vanguard. Ooh, it doesn't line up with the dollar signs. Somebody in the interface department would probably fix that problem for me. Anyway, I'm changing it back to Stock Manager. The point is, using constants makes a program easier to upgrade. So now when I look closely at this function, display title, it has empty parentheses here, which are required because they need to match the empty parentheses in the call statement. We sometimes call that an empty parameter list because, well, there's nothing in there. So what is it that you put inside of the parentheses in a call statement? Well, you guessed it. You put what are called parameters. I'm now going to change my comment marker there, move it down to this line 44, run the program, and you'll see now the difference. On line 42, I am calling a function named display one list. But instead of empty parentheses, I have something in the parentheses. I put company names in there. That's called a parameter. You might think of it as a variable, but it's better to be called a parameter. We sometimes actually call it an actual parameter. Let's go do some research. Company names, company names. Yes, it's one of my variables in this program, which is very nicely organized, by the way, with a nice little section of the code called variables. And the name of that variable is company names. Now, it's not an ordinary variable like the age of somebody who might be 15. It's actually a list variable where square brackets surround a number of multiple elements further separated by commas. So in other words, it's a list that has a length of, does anybody happen to know what the length of that list is? Nick! He said 3 in case you didn't hear it. Good answer. Hey, does anybody know the position number of alphabet? The other Nick? 0. Oddly enough, the first element in a list is considered position 0 in most computer languages, including Python. So this is tricky. Does anybody know the position of Apple? Even though the length is 3, Jack, the position is? He said position 2. Very good. Anyway, back to the importance of this video. Company names is a parameter, and like a soccer ball, in the sport of, well, soccer, it gets passed from the call statement to the function header, which is the first line of the function up here. So let's go do some research and find out where that function is. Display one list. Well, I have 3 functions nicely organized. This one is named display title. That is not a match. This one is named display one list. That is a match. We have a winner. We have a winner, chicken dinner. Display one list, it matches. Now, display one list with title is not a match, just saying. Well, look at the parentheses here. There's one item in the parentheses, company names. Up here, there's one entry in the parentheses. Now, oddly enough, it's not named company names. It's named selected list. I could have named it anything I wanted when I typed up this code. I could have named it X. Once upon a time, there was an algebra teacher named Mrs. Vargo, and she named a variable X, and it stuck. Then for like over 100 years, algebra teachers were using X, including the current modern day Mrs. Vargo. Not the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother Mrs. Vargo that was also an algebra teacher in 1799. So in math, it's traditional to use X as the name of a parameter or variable. You know f of x? X. It's like a parameter. They sometimes call it an argument in mathematics classes, but in computer science, we often call it a parameter. Basically, it's the same thing. Well, we don't use things like X because that's just too mysterious. So I'm naming it selected list. Hey, Nate, who happens to be in this classroom right now. Nate, select which list you care the most about. You have to pick one of these 3 here, 3 list variables. Which one do you want to pick? Hey, he selected stock prices. So if I type stock prices here, spelled correctly, of course, with a capital P, instead of company names, over here, we're not going to see company names anymore. Please predict, Nate, what is going to print out when I click run? The numbers, right, the closing stock prices on the stock exchange as of 4 p.m. yesterday, year 2020. If you're still watching this in the year 2030, Facebook will probably be either higher or lower than $185.02 a share. True fact, when I started my stock investing career in high school, the modern day, the price of a current share of Microsoft, which is roughly $172, was equivalent to 10 cents. And now, because of splits and all, it's up to $172 a share. And I'm still young. When I was 15, I was young, and I'm still, well, youngish. But there's a lot more money in my stock portfolio now than there used to be because I save my allowance. Anyway, back to the point. Let's test Nate's theory. He is correct. When you select a list, you put the name of that variable in there, and it gets passed as a parameter. It plugs in. It goes from here up to here, and we didn't even look at the body of that function yet. You can just trust that it works. It's kind of like turtle.goto 10, 20. The 10 plugs in for X, and the 20 plugs in for its Y coordinate. It just works. You don't need to know why it works. Sometimes it just works like a driverless car. Well, let's check to see why it works the way it does. I unfold the code, and I see there's a for loop. This for loop cycles through whichever list is selected here, and one by one, it iterates through, we call it, and it displays the next batter up to bat. I named this next. I could have named it I, as long as I used I in both places. Check it out. When I run this, it works. Now, you can't use the word next perhaps there, and then I here. It's not going to work. It's going to give you an error message for sure. So as long as you use the same variable name here and here, I traditionally often use next, but you don't have to. You could use any placeholder variable you want. When you have a for loop, you do have to indent the line of code that's inside the for loop. Sorry about that screen refresh. So this for loop is in the body of this function, but you could say that this print statement is in the body of this for loop. The levels of indentation are crucial. If you do not indent correctly in Python, it gives you error messages, well, like this. Worse, like this. Now I have all kinds of problems because it's not indented. Okay, fixing it up. Now let's look at the next step of this program. I'm moving the whole way down now to the last function call statement called, sorry about that, display one list with title. That function has two parameters in its parentheses, which we sometimes call its parameter list. The first one is company names, which I need to replace this one here back to company names. Okay, and then the second parameter is just a piece of text in double quotes. Some people call that a string. But let's check to see what happens to it. Now, I don't know if this is legal in any country. Maybe Australian soccer or rugby allows this. But you can pass two parameters at once. The left hand here, we'll pretend, or the left foot on the soccer player, sends company names, which plugs in for selected list here. Company name in double quotes plugs in for a column title. Some students in algebra, they learn that there sometimes is a function f that has parentheses x comma y with two arguments. Well, in this case, in computer science, we just call it two parameters. But they match up on a one-to-one correspondence. It always works this way in all programming languages. So company names plugs in for selected list. Company name here plugs in for column title, which is just something I made up. And now let's look inside that matching function. I print the column title and I uppercaseify it, which I don't think that's a word, but anyway. So column title, the phrase company name is now turned into uppercase because of dot upper, and it prints on a line all by itself over here. Then I hit the for loop, which cycles through and iterates through all the names of the companies right below it. Kind of like a column with a column heading. Nice function, call statement, that matches up with a nice function. And that nicely explains on the YouTube channel, MISTER, send me any jingle rhythm. If you have a good voice, I could use somebody to sing that jingle, something that's memorable that people won't forget. Till the next time, over and out.